Okay. Can we start?
Yes, you can start.
Okay. So, hello everybody. Happy to open this session in the 19th plenary of the Research Data Alliance for the Interest Group on Health Data. After having dealt in our last two virtual sessions on transparency and trust in health data at Plenary 16 in Costa Rica, and on achieving anonymity and correcting bias with synthetic data through generative artificial intelligence at Plenary 17th in Edinburgh, today's topic for our interest group is the usage of digital twins in healthcare for personalized care. And in our discussion, we will aim at defining the broad concept of the digital twin. What is its specific meaning in healthcare? What is its further outlook for a comprehensive human digital twin? What initiatives are ongoing for developing a digital twin in health ecosystem? What can be the usage of a repository and a simulation platform for digital twins in health? And what can be a roadmap for attaining these goals and integrate multiple digital twins in health into a multi-scale, multi-organ, and multi-disease human digital twin? Generally speaking, a digital twin is a virtual digital replica of physical entities, processes, or systems that allow to simulate the consequences of model-driven decisions. When applied to healthcare, digital twins allow to virtualize healthcare experience in view of optimizing personalized patient care and improving operational efficiency of providers' performance. What are the potential applications of digital twins in health? Well, there are three levels in which we can discuss this. One is the personalization of medical care, as already mentioned. So digital twins in health can take the shape of in silico models of organs and organ systems to test various treatment options, customize therapies, and plan surgery. There is the development of medical therapy, specifically on drugs and devices. So digital twins in healthcare can be used as a tool throughout the research and development process to identify knowledge gaps and flows, to obtain a holistic and better understanding of a patient's disease, to design novel strategies, to optimize therapies, to increase safety, for example, by providing additional scrutiny, to shorten time to market. And lastly, there is the capacity of helping improve healthcare organizations. Digital twins in health can help in driving efficiency, optimizing operational performance, and enhancing both patient and caregiver experience. There has been a recent initiative on digital twins by the European Commission. And this is somewhat related on what we are talking about today, because the European Commission, within its Digital Europe Work Program 21-22, launched a call, the call Digital 2021 Deploy BO1 Twins Health, for a coordination and support action leading to a number of things. Now, what is a coordination and support action? This is normally what the Commission does when the Commission asks for a specific scientific community to help the Commission itself into devising what are the needs of a specific sector, what can be the roadmap for action in this sector, what can be other elements which can be preconditions for making it possible to develop. So it is interesting that the Commission has considered this as an important area for developing something in digital twins. And in fact, what they're asking this coordination and support action to do is to lead to develop an ecosystem of digital twins for healthcare, a framework to structure cooperation and leverage on synergies between academia, private sector, regulators, and end users. And to do this in view of better prevention approaches, faster and more accurate diagnosis, personalized treatments, and care. There are three selected objectives for this coordination and support action, which have been indicated by the European Commission, and they consist of, firstly, a roadmap for the development of a strategic approach to accelerate the uptake of digital twins in healthcare-based solutions, and for further integrating the resources towards a comprehensive virtual representation of the human body. Secondly, a governance framework for a federated cloud-based repository combining digital twins in healthcare resources, as well as the subsequent use and deployment of the repository. And thirdly, a blueprint and technical specifications for a simulation platform for digital twins in health and early prototypes. Some of us have been involved in responding to this call with a proposal. And last week, the European Commission communicating the exciting news that this proposal, namely EDITH, is the winning proposal for this 24 months duration coordination and support action. EDITH stands for an ecosystem for digital twins in healthcare. It is a consortium comprising 19 partners, led by the Virtual Physiological Human Institute, and we have today here Lisbeth Gerris, the director of the Virtual Physiological Human Institute, to talk about this. EDITH includes in its multi-stakeholder advisory board also non-European partners, such as the 12 Labours project coordinated by Professor Peter Hunter of the University of Auckland in New Zealand, and the SimVascular project and the cardiovascular biomechanics computational lab directed by Professor Alison Marsden of Stanford University in the United States. The call of the Commission explicitly set a goal for a human digital twin. And here comes the definition proposed by the Commission of this. A validated, integrated, multi-scale, time and discipline digital twin of the whole body, enabling the comprehensive characterization of the physiological and the pathological state in its full complexity and heterogeneity. And EDITH has proposed a vision for this human digital twin, and it is that the human digital twin can be a distributed digital infrastructure made of data and models standards, standard operative procedures, and APIs that allow the digital twins for healthcare community to accurately predictive models as they develop, and all experimental and clinical data employed in building and validating the models into a shared facility for reuse and collaboration. Now, what is needed to foster this development of an ecosystem for digital twins in healthcare? And for going into this very ambitious direction of the comprehensive human digital twin. Well, what is needed, we can number a few things. First, in silico medicine, predictive models of human pathophysiology, both mechanistic and data-driven. We need artificial intelligence being used here, to extend image processing from one system to another, to aid mechanistic models and quantify uncertainties. We need to make use of wearable technologies in order to gather real-time data and enable its exploitation through predictive models. We need to have data standardization, availability, and access to data. And so we need federated learning technology and privacy-preserving utilization of personal health data. We need research infrastructures, repositories, and platforms, multiple sites for contributing research data, and multiple supercomputing facilities, open repositories for models and codes, including curated catalogs for searching, a platform that enables open access to models, codes, and data, also allowing simulations. And lastly, we need engagement with all stakeholders for the maximum exploitation of these human digital twins. So we need a community effort. An engagement with all stakeholders is critical. The key stakeholders are clinicians, engineering and scientists, data providers, repositories and platform managers, medical device and pharmaceutical industry, policymakers, regulatory bodies. And an artificial intelligence-enabled crowdsourcing platform can be used for engagement and collaboration with all the stakeholders in a time-sensitive manner. This can enable stakeholders to assess and provide feedback in real time on the evolution of the human digital twin ecosystem, allow rewarding and meaningful exchange leading to creation and consensus of the human digital twin ecosystem, allow continuous input, open scrutiny, and representation of all interests, allow the evolution of policy and regulatory decision-making. In just a few words, try and make the development of the roadmap, which is the outcome of the coordination and support action, also a crowdsourcing experiment, so that we get the knowledge of the community feeding into it globally. So, well, this is a very short presentation of the initiatives. We thought of discussing this topic, which was in any case, in general, very interesting. But there is now the opportunity offered by the coordination and support action funded by the European Commission. And so this is now an important opportunity for our interest group to see what type of input can come from the RDA community as such in general. So that's my first introduction. I pass the floor now to Yanis Ioannidis, who's co-chairing this interest group with me. And it will be his turn to speak, and then Elizabeth Gaddis from the VPH Institute. Thank you so much.
Good morning, good afternoon from me as well. Let's see how technology will be helpful with my sharing. Edwin set the stage for what digital twins are and how they can be specialized in healthcare, and then some specifics of Edith. I will say a few things about technology and what is intended, an idea that on where we plan to set up a platform, and of course, and not of course, but some examples from past work. Now let me try to do the sharing. Okay, this is asks me to do something about okay. Oh boy. Sorry, I'm getting a security message. Give me a second.
Okay, we set you into co-host now, so you can try sharing from now on, please.
Okay, okay, let's try again. Share screen, but not this screen. I want a particular window, and I want as window this. Let's see. Do you see my screen? You don't see my screen. Let me try again. Share
Not
screen.
yet.
I want a particular window. Okay, this is it. Share. This grant bar access to screen recording. Okay, it doesn't cooperate. How can we solve this quickly? If I can send it to you, Edwin, my presentation.
I couldn't show mine, so I asked.
I see.
Yes,
So you have to send it to me. Yeah,
send it to her.
Okay. And I don't have you on Skype, so let me send it by email. Let's do that. Give me a second to send my presentation to Liz. Okay, you should receive it in the next few seconds. It's gone. So as soon as you have it, Lizzie, please share it, and then I'll speak over it.
Yeah. Can you please indicate what next slide when you have to when you want me to change?
Yes,
your
absolutely,
slide?
absolutely.
I'll mute myself first.
Excellent. Thank you very much. No, that is the title slide that Edwin showed, so we can move into the first one. So thank you very much for this. Edwin, in his presentation, talked about the need to establish a federated platform in order to support digital twin technology, models, simulations, dynamics, and so on and so forth. And I will give you a glimpse of what might that platform look like, past experiences from things like this, and of course that's roughly the steps that we plan to at least initiate our work in EDITH. So the key thing is to model and simulate health issues, to have the digital twin of the human for all the good motivations that Edwin mentioned. The thing is that this will not be starting from a blank page. There are many efforts in the past to simulate human or the human organs and try to understand how they operate. The key thing is how to bring all of them together, of course, to end up with a digital human of with a twin of the entire human. And one of the main important things that I want to mention is that all this has to be on fair principles. And what is fair? Fair stands for findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. This is a concept that has started from the open science movement and open access movement. And of course, the platform that we want for the digital twin of the human, we want everything there, the data, the processes, the knowledge, the simulators, the infrastructure, the computing infrastructure on which these simulations will be running. We want them to be fair, findable, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. Great. So this is a very high level overview of the architecture, as you can imagine it. There will be a central node that will be coordinating everything. Can you hear me?
Yes, now yes.
Yes.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay. So there will be a central node coordinating every piece of this infrastructure, connecting to various nodes. And some nodes can have just simulations and parts of the digital twin elements. Others can be going just to the repository. I'll say a few more things about the repository later on. Or it could be external data, or it could be nodes outside of the main platform that is intended to be set up from the domain of FAIR. You know, there is an initiative that brings in together partners that have resources of various levels and various kinds, bring them together in a fair way. And that's for short, we call it the FAIR dome, the FAIR domain. So connecting outside. And in a standard architecture, we expect 4 main layers to be established. Of course, starting from the lowest layer is the high performance computing or the cloud services, infrastructure as a service level where secure processes and secure access to data and computation and other resources will be given. Edwin mentioned the word privacy. All models and all twinnings will happen based on real data, and this real data invariably will be sensitive and will have to apply performance privacy preserving techniques. On top of it will be a middleware that will establishing this the federation with software and various other basic services. I won't say too many of these things, and then it will be the main layer of services where we'll have all the analysis, the simulation, the modeling packages, the data servicing, generic machine learning, specific machine learning, dynamics, interconnection and docking of one model to another, the model of the heart with the model of the lung, the model of the brain with the model of the brain with the model of the spinal cord, and so on and so forth. All this will be happening in the services. That will be the richest layer, and the architecture will be such that in addition to what, for example, the partners of Edith will bring in as pathfinders to test the establishment of this platform, there will be openness and fairness in the sense that I mentioned before, architecture not to do the connection. And then, of course, there will be the front end, which is easier said than done. You need a multitude of ways to approach the human understanding and interacting with all the digital twin elements. So this is an abstract architecture based on which we'll start building the twin platform. Next, please. Very quick motivation. I mean, why Federation Centralized? This should be motherhood, but there are many practical reasons. The cost of centralization is too high, and the data is so much that the volume is too big to put them in one place. And we need to capitalize on a participatory model and all the investments that have been done for the data and the modules and so on to be where they have been first invented. So that's why we need the federation, but also there are the privacy reasons. The data is sensitive, cannot leave because of regulations or policies, their places. And there is a competitive advantage. You don't, whoever has the data, whoever has the knowledge and models needs to share, but needs to also to maintain competitive advantage. Next slide, please. I mentioned that there will be a federated repository. It's at the heart, well, speaking of twins, I shouldn't say heart, but anyway, it's the core of what we do. I mean, you want data and models together in our harmony to work. The FAIR principles, again, a taxonomy of resources for standards and specific ones that will be coming in, and also recommending policies with respect to the use of the models. A huge catalog that will be inclusive of all the resources that will exist and the standards of interoperability that we'll be getting there, and standardization for input, for modeling, and for the actual process of simulation. Edwin alluded to these things, so I don't want to spend any more time. Next slide, please. Okay. Here is, I'll give you an example to give you a flavor of the complexity. And I'll pick, I mean, Edith as examples has chosen a small set of organs that will be used as pathfinders in coming up with a platform. One of them that will be explored is the brain, and there we can use the experience that has been had from the Human Brain Project and the eBrains infrastructure that is being built, which only, there's no issue of digital twin. It is only an issue, which is a prerequisite, of course, for coming up with digital twins, which is modeling and simulation, and both in hardware and software and all kinds of data and knowledge that has been created only for the brain. The brain, of course, is a very complex organ, but it's one of many that we need to do for the human digital twin. And this is, in the 4 layers that I mentioned before, this is a high-level architecture of the actual architecture that we have in eBrains, just for the brain. And you can see we have brain atlases, we have the virtual brain and interactions, and so on and so forth. And every single box in this picture represents a class of modules that have been developed and are being developed for eBrains, and will have to be developed or incorporated, because many exist already, for the multitudes of organs in order to bring them together. So this, imagine as a zooming in from something much bigger to just look at the brains. This is the kind of complexity that we need. Next slide, please. And 2 more pictures I want to show, and then I'll be done in terms of the complexity that we need to deal with. Again, zooming in on a particular level of simulation of the brain. Again, I'm talking about the brain. And you just see a bunch of models that exist, and they are their names for the brain. And the middle donut, as you'll see, it has 3 pieces. Some are it's a very dense donut, so it's a very dense graph of things. One is lighter and one is even lighter. This is just a pictorial depiction of the multiple levels that you need to simulate things. You need to simulate them at a cell level. You need to simulate them at a subcellular level, at the molecular level, or in the other direction, at the networking level, at the whole brain model level to understand cognition and so on. And for the same organ, for the same process within an organ, you have multiple levels of simulations and twinning and twinning capture, twin capture that we need to do. And I'm just giving you now an example of from the brain to understand the vast complexity. It's not just that we have one model for the heart or one model for the lung. We'll have multiple biological levels or abstraction levels. Next slide, please. And this is just to, I shouldn't say scare you, but well, to bring it to an end. This is an even more detail of the overall architecture and how it is laid out. Every single piece now is a particular simulation. Again, taken from the brain. Something like this needs to be established for everyone, for every organ, as it laid out in multiple computational resources, in multiple data centers, in multiple computation centers around Europe and the world. This is a picture where you see how much things is in one node, many other things at the other, and you need the interoperation. Next slide, please. So a very small glimpse, abstract view of the kinds of technological issues we'll be dealing with. It's a long and exciting way ahead. And personally, I'm truly looking forward to getting going on this. And we need all of you. We need the entire community to participate from the health side, from technology side, and so on, to bring this to reality. Thank you very much. I don't know if you, Edwin, will speak or I should, but anyway, Liz, now all this was primi piatti. The main course is Liz, so hit it.
Okay. Let's see if I can share my own slide. And I need to apologize to everyone. I sound a bit offish. It's because I've been diagnosed with COVID a couple of days ago. So still a bit woozy, but I hope I'll be managing okay. So after the excellent introduction of Edwin and Yanis, I'll talk a bit more about maybe the first bit of the title of EDIT, so the ecosystem for digital twins in healthcare. And when I do that, I do that in my capacity as the current executive director of the VPH Institute. And for those who don't know that, VPH Institute is the international society, scientific society for in silico medicine. It's something that we've worked very hard on within in silico medicine, but that extends towards any sort of field related to digital twins in healthcare, is that the community is really, as Jan has also already said, and Edwin, the community is really crucial. We have a technical implementation level, we have users experience, but these things are very hard to reach the policy level. So if we want to have a connect between the policy level and the technical implementation level, there is a middleman that is required, or a middlewoman that is required, and that is the community that plays its role there. And that is exactly what these organizations that you see here on the slide have been trying to do in the area of in silico medicine, but I'm sure there are many others in other fields. Because digital health is quite broad. There's a lot of areas that people here are representing. There is the data area, there is the e-health, the sensors, the wearables, and then the in silico medicine, and still others. So the starting point for the EDIT project, or for the human digital twin, as the Commission would like to see it, is of course data. Data in whatever shape or form it is collected, whether it's in the lab or in the clinics or from a wearable, anywhere. But data by itself does not yet provide you, or does not allow you to take action with that data. It needs to be gathered in a structured way so it becomes information. And then it needs to be somehow translated into knowledge, and even more actionable knowledge. So the premise taken by the project is that when we take the data and we turn it into a predictive model that we can then assess for its credibility, that is when your data becomes actionable knowledge. And just to make sure that when I say the word model, it's really anywhere along the spectrum of technologies. AI was already mentioned, mechanistic modeling was already mentioned. Well, they're nothing more than two ends of a continuum. Whether you want to use more data or only data on the left-hand side, or whether you want to use mechanisms, and mostly mechanisms as here on the right-hand side, it really is determined based on, well, the problem that you want to solve and the availability of data and knowledge that you have in order to solve that problem. So turn data into actionable knowledge using somewhere technologies along the spectrum, or a combination of technologies along this spectrum. Edwin already said it, but I want to say it one more time, that what we want to do with EDIT is make a human digital twin that is a distributed digital infrastructure made of data and model standards, SOPs, APIs, that will allow our community to accumulate all the predictive models it develops and all of the experimental and clinical data employed in building and validating those models into a shared facility for reuse and collaboration. And Jan has already explained or gave a glimpse of what this kind of shared facility could look like. And what I would like to add to that is somehow how we can do this together as a community, and what are the things that we are already doing, and how could this then work over the coming time. Now, in order to build EDIT, there are four main elements. There's the ecosystem, the roadmap, the cloud-based repository, and the simulation platform. And of course, in order to realize any of those, what you need is information on what is already out there and what is being developed in terms of models, data, standards, infrastructure, stakeholders, and sustainability, in order to keep whatever we are developing to make sure that it lasts beyond the project. Now I'll skip the ecosystem for now because I'll go in detail into it a bit later. I'll just very briefly go into the other three. So what the Commission wants us to do is build a roadmap towards the human digital twin, an integrated version of a digital twin, as Edwin showed the definition. And what we have chosen to go for is, as you've seen a couple of slides ago, that we go not for one fully integrated, complete model of a human, but that rather we want to create a level playing field where all of the different models that are developed for different organs can speak to one another, can interact with one another. As Janne said, that when the brain wants to talk to the spinal cord, that there is ways, that there is technologies available to be able to do so. That is what we aim for, not just build one big model of a human. That is not the end goal. Now, making a roadmap, there is some experience within the community. We have made roadmaps before for different manifestations of human digital twins, if you wish. So you have the element of personal health forecasting. So that's a digital twin for use by patients or citizens. You have the digital patient as it is used by the doctor for decision support systems. You have in silico clinical trials, so how they are used or in silico trials in general for use in R&D, whether it's academic or industry, where we can use models to support development of new medical products. And there are a number of roadmaps that have been developed in the past that have led to the community coming together, and also really an acceleration in the awareness at all kinds of different stakeholders and all kinds of different levels on what these technologies are and what they can and cannot do. And so this could, if we can realize this for human digital twin, I think this would be a very great advantage. So one of the actual things that we need to realize, so apart from the ecosystem and the roadmap, which are traditional for CSA actions, we also need to realize a federated cloud-based repository, as Jan has already said. And this is one level below the simulation platform that he explained. This is a way where we can collect the different informations that are out there. And here you see a schematic representation where you see from the top how people could interact, where they could upload their models, where they could choose models that they want to use, whether they can indicate, where they can indicate what is the level of their model, because not all models, of course, are at the same level of development, of credibility assessment. So they're not all usable in a clinical context, but that doesn't mean that it's not usable in an R&D context. So there's a lot of elements that we need to take into account, a lot of things that we need to register when models get, and other resources, so also data sets and standards get registered in the repository. Then the next level is then simulation platform that Jan has already presented, and that would really be the culmination where everything can start interacting with one another, whereas a repository is a more passive one. You can access it, you can download it, but with a simulation platform, that's really where you can start having the different elements talk to one another. So back to the ecosystem, the part where I want to spend a bit more time on. Of course, there is a number of groups that have already been mentioned a few times that are important here, and you have the groups from the technology side, the in silico medicine, the wearables, infrastructure, repository, health data, the AI, HPC. But then of course you also have stakeholders like the users, patients, medical professionals, public at large, policymakers, regulators. All of those belong together in the ecosystem, and all of those need to come together in the ecosystem to realize a roadmap, to discuss the roadmap, and to make sure that we can accelerate the uptake of that roadmap afterwards. And so one of the things that we will spend some time on is together thinking about some of the current barriers to the adoption. And I'm sorry, it says still in silico medicine, this should be digital twin. Some of these barriers that currently still exist that we need to work on and overcoming, and that really can only be overcome if we work on this together. And that is what I now wanted to show, how some of the current activities in the community are already trying to target overcoming some of these hurdles. So let's have a look at the collections to validate models, so data that is available. And there is a lot of data. I'm not talking here about the clinical and the health data that is typically discussed or that was already mentioned by Jannes and others. If we want to make a digital twin, for instance, of a stent that is interacting with an aortic with the aortic wall, we need to have information on the tissue. And already on that level, there is a problem, because you will find a lot of information in the literature, but there is a big variation in that data that exists. So if you want to take that data and you want to go to a regulator to have your digital twin or your model approved, this is going to be very difficult, because there is no certificate of birth, there is no credibility proof for that data set that you're using. So one of the things as a community we set out to do is organize a few community challenges to create consensus on characterization of biological tissues. These are things that we're doing that's led by my colleague Nele van Meij at KU Leuven. It's something that we have started organizing from within our community, but pretty fast. We actually, pretty soon, we already discovered that other organizations across the world are working on similar things, maybe not as practical as this one, but are thinking about similar things. So this is a problem that is definitely a real one. So what we want to do is maybe more so than even come up with the best with the protocol that will eliminate all variation, is also to create awareness of all the different things that could cause variation in a testing protocol, and do that together with standards bodies like ISO, with ASME. And the first focus we had now is on mechanical properties of aortic tissue, where a test campaign typically goes in 4 steps. We select, or we ask for expressions of interest from across the globe. We send people samples of tissues and synthetic tissues to test. We get their information. We look at where variability is coming from. There is a discussion within the community on how to harmonize the approaches and trying to eliminate most of the variability. We resend the tissues and are then making and then ask for another test by these different groups in order to evaluate whether this effort of having a consensus approach was actually able to reduce the variability. So this is one of these things that is going on. This is something you can only do as a community. Another thing that is very important in order to move any new technology forward is having the right policies in place, because you can do all you want. If the policy doesn't allow you, for instance, to use computer modeling and simulation when you go to a regulatory body, well, then they will always say, well, we don't have to do this. So getting the regulator, getting the policymakers to put in even just the tiniest suggestion of a specific technology is very useful for a community to start working and to start really forging the path from the bench to the bedside, if you will. So what you see here is a few is an excerpt from the reports from US, from both the Senate and the House committee there, mentioned that FDA should expand on its use of in silico clinical technologies. And then also a bit later on the European Commission side, there were a number of texts, or actually a whole lot more since, that are mentioning explicitly digital technologies, and not just AI, which happened a while ago. Everything became AI, but now there is AI, HPC, computer modeling and simulation. So they're diversifying the use of the digital technologies. So it's really digital technologies in general that are now there in the MDR, that are there in the regulation for EMA. So all of these are giving us tools to go back to, in Europe, the notified bodies or to EMA, to start working with them on defining regulatory pathways, because they're the gatekeeper. If your digital twin is not passing the regulatory scrutiny, well, then there's nobody that will invest in it because it cannot really be used as such as digital evidence in the development of new products and services. In the US, it's been a bit. They've been a front runner, especially on the area of medical devices, where for a long time they've been discussing on how to do credibility assessment of digital tools for medical devices. And they've come up with, they've even turned this into a standard, the ASME VMV40 standard for the verification and validation of modeling in medical devices. They are now turning this also into guidances at the FDA level, and have opened public debates for getting feedback on the proposed guidances that they have put out there. On the European side, with the MDR, the notified bodies are a bit overwhelmed. So we've focused in the first instance on the European Medicine Agency, who already use some kind of modeling, pharmacokinetics, pharmacodynamics, but the other types of models and digital tools are still a bit more difficult for them to assess. So we have worked actively with them, and what you see here are two perspective papers co-authored by people from academia, industry, and regulators on how to do evaluation of in silico tools, of digital tools in drug development. Now, of course, this then can only survive if you also have the right business models, if you have the right service models that can attach to that. So this is what Edith will investigate: how to regulate, incentivize, and support the ecosystem to make sure that it actually becomes an economically profitable sector, and that it goes away from being purely subsidized by the Commission. And of course, this is broader than European level alone. But for that, we need to understand what could be different business models that we currently have. There are spin-offs, there are startups that are starting, that are focusing on digital technologies more and more. But as such, it's still not the most well-known sector. So this is something that we aim to accelerate, aim to improve with the EDIT project. And then finally, of course, to be able to, well, I'm skipping a few, like properly trained workforce and better informed stakeholders. I don't know, I think my slides are a bit off. So let me start first do this. The stakeholders, of course, as I mentioned already, you need to do this together with stakeholders like the healthcare professionals, like patients. And recently we conducted a survey in the medical community to understand better what they know about digital technologies, what they don't know, what they fear, and what they trust. And so it turns out that they see it really as an opportunity for them to do a lot of things. And in general, they're quite confident that at some point it would lead to help. But it's still in their perspective, and these were a lot of them already knew modeling and simulation. So they still don't really know for sure how to access very well these technologies, how to use these computing resources, and how this really works on the regulatory level. So what they can use, what they cannot use, and where to find the right data for that. So these are things that within EDITH we will actively be working on. And then finally, on the sustainability level, excuse me, because we want this to survive beyond the 2-year duration of the project. In the sustainability plan, we will make sure that with these user communities and with the providers, we will look at what they need, what they want, and extend these kind of surveys. Look also at a realistic health economics perspective for digital twins in healthcare, conceptualize the marketplace mechanism for this everything that is being developed, and develop also proof of concept software architecture, as Janus explained. And so with all of the things that are currently going on, maybe one last thing that as a community we're working on, because sometimes with everything that is being developed and all over the place, people are working on standards and on initiatives. Sometimes it becomes hard to see the forest for the trees. And so we could think about having practices, good practices. In this case, good simulation practice is something that the community is actively working on. There could also be other practices where these kind of documents or these kind of practices could be a one-stop shop where if you're new in the field, if you're a company that wants to start working with digital twins in healthcare, if you are researchers that want to make sure that what you're developing is actually fit to be going into a repository, into a simulation platform, and really make it to the clinic or the patient, well, then a good practice like this, along with strong ethical guidances, could help you to get everything right from the very beginning. So these things that are now currently being developed as a grassroots initiative could be very useful in EDITH as well. And so that, I think, is the final slide that I would like to show, that everything that we do in this EDITH project is really driven by the community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lisbeth. That was very interesting and fully comprehensive. Now the floor is open for interventions, questions and answers. Any comment by anybody?
Are there people in the room in Korea?
Well, it's complicated.
Or
This is hybrid, so somebody may be in the rooms, some people may be remote connection. Yeah, there is a question now. What is in silico medicine? This is a basic question coming up.
And I should have explained that more clearly. I apologize for that. Basically, in silico medicine is another word for computer modeling and simulation in healthcare. And the term in silico refers to silicon, the main component of computer chips, and it was chosen in similarity to what in vitro and in vivo models are doing in medicine. So in vitro in glass or in laboratory equipment, and then in vivo in living in a living environment, so animals and humans, and in silico is then in the computer. So it becomes a fourth group of evidence that also regulators accept after animals, humans, lab or bench data. In silico or digital evidence is the fourth category.
Lise, one of the things that I faced in relevant presentations is that people say, okay, what is the difference between models and simulations of this and digital twin? And I have been trying to explain the difference, but I'm sure you can do a better job. So if you can separate this modeling and simulation from a digital twin, I think it will show, you know, the level of complexity.
Well, it's a bit of a contentious topic, eh? It also depends a lot on who you speak to. If you speak to some people from Industry 4.0, the classical engineering groups, then digital twins really have this this direct interaction between and real-time interaction between the digital and the physical versions of the digital and the physical twin. Whereas in healthcare, we tend to let go a bit more of that direct connection because it doesn't always make sense. And for the particular project that we had here, we relied a lot on the definition of the European Commission of the human digital twin, as Edwin showed it, where it is an integrated, multi-scale, multi-time, multi-disease framework of a that can help to explain the physiology and the pathology of humans. So in that sense, it becomes much more like the use of computer modeling and simulation in healthcare, but in the widest sense possible. So it doesn't need to be a mechanistic model. It doesn't need to be a wearable model, but it can be any of those things. So I think the way we approached it here in the project was to take the widest definition as possible, in which everything becomes a bit blurry. So I'm not sure I'm really making this much clearer here. But it's true that not everybody would agree with this this overlapping that is going on inside the healthcare community.
As predicted, your answer is much better than what I have been giving in other contexts. Thanks. Thanks. Edwin, do you have any news from the regulatory front? I mean, will the Commission, do you think, or anywhere in the world, will be having different privacy requirements for digital twins compared to other kinds of data?
Absolutely no idea. I think this is an open issue now. We're all discussing about privacy enhancing technologies and how they apply. And there is for sure a very interesting topic on seeing how this will apply in the area of digital twins. I've seen one last American taxonomy of privacy enhancing technologies, which is quite interesting. They distinguish between algorithmic privacy enhancing technologies, like for instance, the differential privacy we've been discussing about last year. They speak about architectural privacy enhancing technology, and that is the federated approach of which you have spoken, and Lisbeth has spoken as well. And they speak of augmented privacy enhancing technologies, and in there they put the synthetic data, which we spoke last year, and also the digital twins. So this is a particular taxonomy, which is quite interesting, I think, making somewhat it clearer what are the different tools. And the digital twins is the coming of age of now the model-driven medicine, and seeing how mechanistic models, data-driven models, or hybrid models can work together and lead to something which is really a twin of you have in real life, but based on digital elements, and which allows knowledge to progress, experiments to be done, etc. So the principle that you intervene in silico in first of touching the living entity is very sound, and I think it's exciting to have an opportunity for going there. But really, it's something which needs the contribution of all the community from all the sides of the stakeholders which can be involved.
Absolutely. You said the Americans came up with, which organization or which group did come up with the initial taxonomy?
I'll send you the, it is a recent publication I saw, but it was interesting. They were still referring to the rather simplistic approach of privacy, which is the HIPAA regulation. But they had this articulation of the different approaches as algorithmic, architectural, or based on augmenting data, and they will put both synthetic data and digital twins in this last category.
Yes, sir.
So we all had the surprise that the Commission decided to fund this project, EDIT, which had been submitted after we had indicated this topic for the session today. And so now, Lisbeth, you'll have the burden of leading this large community, and of getting more and more ways of involving also people outside the specific 19 partners who have accepted to be involved in the consortium. So what is your assumption there? When will this start?
Edwin, let me correct, before Lisa responds, we are not surprised to have the Commission fund this project. We're surprised to have the call. But our proposal was amazing, and we're not surprised at all.
Yeah, but there were also other candidates, so it could have been a different outcome. So we were happy about this, very happy. Yes, we were hoping about this, but anyway, it was when hopes become a reality, it's always an excellent surprise.
I think what we tried to do with the partners is to make sure that all of the different communities, especially on the technology side, are represented, so that there is industry, that there is academia, that people from the wearables, from the AI, from the in silico medicine, from infrastructure, HPC, all of those have representatives in our partners, and so that would be the way into those communities, I would think. So that's why we made sure that we had a quite broad group to be able to access all of the different communities that really need to come together in order to do this. And I think there's also more and more people are focusing on very similar things. Also in the calls of the Commission, you see things that actually are very much linking. So there is a lot of space for optimization and for working together to go a bit further than each can on their own. So I'm hoping that and I'm thinking that spirits are more ripe for this now than they were a couple of years ago, because this is becoming so complex, as Janus has shown. This is beyond any one of us or any one consortium. So I'm hoping that we're at that we can use the momentum that we're currently in to make sure that EDIT meets its goals.
When do you expect the project to start?
I have no idea. I would say we need to sign within 3 months. That's what they said. And then, well, let's hope not too soon, because we need to hire people. But then we expect somewhere towards the end of the year.
Okay, so I guess I request to share the information about the article I mentioned, and that is I will give it. It's selecting privacy-enhancing technologies for managing health data use by 3 people. There is Sarah Jordan, Clara Fontaine, and Rachel Hendricks startup, and it's published in the Frontiers in Public Health of 16th March 2022.
If you could type the title at least in the chat, that would be helpful. Yeah.
I think I found it. This is the link, I think.
Yeah.
Jordan, Fontaine, and Hendricks syrup. Yeah.
No, that's it.
That's
Thank you so much.
One of the things that we've, I shouldn't say debated, but anyway, is in front of us. Is it how much of a digital twin? No, how mature are we to use digital twins for health research, and how mature are we to use it actually in clinical practice?
I think the level of maturity at this moment is mostly stuck at the single organ level, whereas for single organs, digital twins are used in clinical decision support systems. For instance, in the heart field, there's a lot of examples where digital twins are actually being used routinely, where also digital twins are used well, then it's not so much personalized when we're talking about clinical trials, but that's more a cohort of digital twins representing a cohort of actual people. That's also already in use. So I think at the single organ level, where it is always software that is fit for purpose, so that it's just at a very local level, there are some very mature examples. Now, when it comes to sharing all of this and rolling this out much more widely and being able to talk to other organ systems, that's where there's a big development still needed, I think.
What you mentioned, long and exciting way ahead.
Sure. What you mentioned, Lisbeth, about the good simulation practices is significant. This can be something which is practically developing and showing how things can be further applied with becoming reference points for new researchers as well. Perhaps if you expand a little bit on this, what are the experiences going in this way already?
Yeah, this is managed as a grassroots initiative. So there's a community of practice called In Silico World in Slack, where regulators, academia, and industry people, and well, anybody else interested in the topic has come together and has discussed on how we could make a suggestion for a good simulation practice, because obviously we're in no position to actually create a good simulation practice. There would be an organization like ICH OECD or any other that needs to adopt this and actually make it a good practice. What we have done is we've modeled ourselves based on the good clinical practice at the moment, with the different elements in the document that we've been preparing. So it has become a bit more than a green or a white paper. It has become something that has 11 chapters, and in each chapter we discuss, for instance, how to, at a very high level, how to do credibility assessment, or what are the ethical implications of good simulation practice, what the sponsor needs to do, what the modeler needs to do. So all of these different elements that you would also find in the good clinical practice, we have taken and have discussed in the community on how this would reflect, how this would look like for modeling and simulation. And then we've teamed up with the Avicenna Alliance, which is the alliance between PPH Institute and industry, and our stakeholders or our partners like FDA. And we are discussing chapter by chapter now with them, how they see this working for them, how they, if they have comments or what they would like to see different. And so once all of this is done, we would have a proposal for a good simulation practice that we then would that we'll put out there for everybody to read, and for which we hope that an organization that we're of course also lobbying for that already, but that an organization would take that on and actually make it an actual good practice.
What is the difference between these good simulation practices and the standard operational procedures on which other people are also working in the same area?
Good simulation practices is more like a is trying to stay away from any specific standard or SOP or anything like that. So it tries to provide a more high level view on things, and then refer people to specific SOP, specific standards. What we are for now still trying to do is make one GSP for drugs and devices. So not split them up, even though there are differences between drugs and devices, and there are certainly different standards and different guidances. But we're trying to make everything at a higher level, and then say, okay, if you want to do credibility assessment, how should you do that? You go and talk to the regulator, you have this conversation. It's more that kind of stuff. And then for a particular organ system, for a particular type of medical therapy, you go and look at EMA guidances instead of notified body guidances, or you go and talk to FDA, you go and look at an ISO standard specifically for your organ system or specifically for the type of device that you are developing. There are SOPs for what you have. So it would be more a gathering of information. So it's like the one-stop shop from which they then, or like the portal through which they go to find all the other types of information for more specific cases.
Thank you. Well, we've come almost to the end of our time. I must congratulate Lisbeth for having been able to attend very actively, notwithstanding the COVID, which fell upon her just a couple of days ago. Congratulations. This shows that, well, you don't have heavy symptoms, but still it is an effort to be doing this when you don't feel well. So we appreciate it even more. Thank you so much.
In a few decades, maybe she could have been sending her digital twin to give the presentation, and she wouldn't have to suffer that.
Yeah, if that digital twin then would be better prepared than the physical one.
But we're very happy to have the physical one now with us.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Lisbeth.
So some last comments from you, Yanis, about the whole session?
No, it is a very exciting path that is being, I mean, it has been open under different names, as Lisbeth said, VPH and in silico medicine and so on and so forth. And I think even for industrial inanimate things, digital twinning is a very complicated issue. You can imagine a few orders of magnitude more complexity when you have the human or some other animal for that matter. So it is, I think this is not a 100-meter dash, it's a marathon or maybe super marathon that we as a community have to run. And there will be many exciting stops on the way and discoveries and achievements. And really looking forward for this community. I mean, those of you who attended, who are still attending this session, please come join us on the various levels in our EDIF effort and beyond, because this is for the long haul. This is a trip that will last for quite a bit, and we need everyone's help, every perspective, every intuition, every insight. So thank you for being with us, and thanks again to Lisbeth for her wisdom and all her knowledge that she shared with us.
Yeah, so thank you very much. And indeed, this is the beginning of a new journey, putting together a number of things. And there is this opportunity for the next 24 months of developing a vibrant ecosystem about all this and coming to a consensus roadmap of what can be the further steps to be taken to further enhance these developments, including a working repository of digital twins, as was said, and a simulation platform. So this will be the exciting news, and I really encourage everybody in the RDA community to get in touch and get involved if possible. Lisbeth, one last word from you. We have 1 minute.
Yeah, I just pasted the link to the summary of EDIP, where there is also a way to sign up to stay informed and to stay involved in the activities if you want to. So I invite everyone to do that, and I hope to see everyone again.
Excellent. So thank you very much, everybody.
Images. I need you to like.
Couldn't hear. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.